Hi, welcome to the Brief Book Reviews channel, otherwise known as An Old Guy Reviews the Book that he's read this week. So what's the old guy read this week? Well, the book I've read this week is this one. It's called The Negotiator by author Brooke Robinson. Was released as a hardback here in the UK on the 20th of June 2024 by Harvill Secker. It's the author's second book. The first one was called The Interpreter, which was very well received. So hadn't read the previous book, The Interpreter. Saw this, thought, looks like a good summer read, I'll give it a go. Glad it did. So what's it all about, how you say? The central character in this book is called Tia West. And the whole book, if you will, centres on one event that happened 3 years ago. And in fact, the timeline on the book is split into two sections, if you will. It goes from that, now, and then. So 3 years ago, Tia West was a serving officer with the Metropolitan Police Service. She desperately wanted to be a police negotiator. She went on the course. She felt she had the right character for the job. She empathised with people, but she didn't make it. She failed the course. So she's wondering what to do next. She knows that there's an opportunity to work for the police's, antiques and arts, theft and crime division, but doesn't know too much about it. So she decides to wander around a museum. She doesn't want to go to one of the massive museums. So she goes to a museum called the Bennett Museum, which is basically a converted old house, a much smaller museum. Unfortunately, while she's there, there is an incident where three environmental activists, they're called Asher, Storm and Dom, take control of one of the floors of the museum and hold the people in it hostage. They are environmental activists and they are demanding that they get a call to the Prime Minister and demanding that the Prime Minister makes a pledge to complete net zero, not carbon emissions, complete net zero. And they say if that doesn't happen, then they'll start killing the hostages. So Tia is mixed up in this lot, and she thinks, well, I know a bit about negotiation techniques, maybe I can help. Unfortunately, I don't think it's given too much away, things don't go that well. So the hostage siege eventually ends, but then we find ourselves 3 years later in the modern day, where Tia has left the Metropolitan Police Force, is now working for a private security organisation called Brilliant Bobbies. She notes that one of the people involved in the hostage situation has committed suicide, and she's a bit worried about that. So she goes to see the guy's wife, and it turns out that 3 years after the event, her husband, who's committed suicide, had been receiving threatening letters relating to the hostage scenario. And Tia soon finds out that other people have been receiving, that are involved with the hostage taking, have been receiving letters as well. So she's determined to find out what's going on here. Even though she's no longer a serving police officer, she was part of that siege. She still feels guilt from that siege because it didn't end well for some people. And she decides to find out what on earth's going on. And she finds out that one of the perps, one of the activists that was involved, a young guy called Asher, who pleaded his innocence. He basically said, look, Storm was the leader, Dom was the main activist, I just went along for the ride. But he's been released from prison, and she's thinking, is this, are these threatening letters a result of Asher being released from prison, or am I going down the wrong route here? So that's the essence of the story, that Tia is desperately trying to find out what's going on here. The characters are very well written. We see how they've reacted to the hostage situation. Some have just said, right, that's it, forget about it, I'll carry on with my life. Others are still struggling with it. One has even decided to write a book about it and make money out of the situation, much to the disdain of the other people involved. But those characters are very well written by the author. And the actual, we go back, as I said, it's written in two timelines, now and then, and we go back to the scenes that led up to the hostage taking place, how the activists got involved. And the actual hostage taking is very dramatic. It's very, very well written. So the characters are well drawn. The hostage situation is very well written, and we got to the current day, whereas Tia pulls away the various, the onion skins, if you like, of the mystery. We find that Tia herself is in danger. So the actual book itself is 297 pages. There's an excerpt from the interpreter at the back, to get people interested, I guess, in the author's previous work. So it's a good story. The only thing I would say is that I felt there are certain threads that are not answered properly. There's a very good piece of misdirection towards the end, and there's a little bit of a twist. But I just felt that there was a couple of loose ends that weren't tied off, and if anything, whilst as I said, the character's good, the actual drama of the hostage situation is very well written, I just felt it tailed off a bit towards the end of the book. But nevertheless, an entertaining enough read. As I said, 297 pages. I'd give it 6 out of 10. I think that's it for this week's brief book review. Thanks for watching. 1010 till we do it again. Cheers.